Today, I'll examine consumer protection and product liability, focusing on the legal rules that shape how businesses design, market, and sell their products. At the center of this topic is a tension between two goals: protecting consumers from harm and giving businesses clear, workable standards for operating. The key question is how courts balance those interests. We'll consider the ways courts shield consumers and why businesses are increasingly challenging or seeking to rewrite the rules that determine when liability applies. Consumer protection matters because a free market does not always provide consumers with enough information to make safe decisions. Businesses often know much more about a product's risks than the people buying it. That information asymmetry can leave consumers exposed, especially when a product causes harm, and its price fails to reflect the true level of risk. Legal accountability helps correct this market failure. Courts provide a remedy by stepping in, balancing the relationship between businesses and consumers, and holding companies responsible when their products create avoidable harm. This chapter examines the consumer protection landscape and the institutions that help safeguard buyers. At the federal level, agencies provide oversight and enforcement. State attorneys general add another layer by addressing violations within their jurisdictions. The courts form the third layer, offering a path for accountability when consumers are harmed or companies fail to meet their obligations. Together, these three parts create a three-layer safety net, protecting people from unsafe products, deceptive practices, and corporate negligence. The key idea is that consumer protection is shared across multiple systems, not handled by one authority alone. This slide highlights four key federal agencies that protect consumers in different areas of everyday life. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, addresses deceptive advertising and unfair business practices across industries. The Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, establishes mandatory safety standards and issues recalls. The FDA oversees the safety of food, medications, medical devices, and cosmetics. Finally, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, focuses on vehicle safety and manages automotive recalls. Together, these agencies help reduce consumer harm and promote accountability in the marketplace. This chapter focuses on the three primary legal theories courts use when a product injures a consumer. Negligence centers on reasonable care. The manufacturer may be responsible if it failed in design, manufacturing, or warnings. Breach of warranty asks whether the product lived up to express or implied promises made at the point of sale. Strict liability is different because responsibility can apply regardless of fault when a defective product causes harm. Understanding these distinctions is important because each theory applies in different circumstances and carries its own burden of proof. Strict liability is one of the consumer's strongest legal protections. Established in Greenman versus Yuba Power Products in 1963, it changed the focus from whether a manufacturer acted carelessly to whether the product itself was defective. A plaintiff generally must show three things: the product was defective, the defect existed when it left the seller, and the defect caused the injury. In practical terms, this doctrine places the cost of accidents on manufacturers, who are best positioned to prevent those defects in the first place. This chapter examines landmark cases that help define the boundaries of corporate responsibility. Court decisions do more than resolve individual disputes. They establish precedents that can influence how companies operate and how consumers are protected. The examples range from exploding gas tanks to contaminated drinking water, showing how legal rulings respond to serious risks and clarify accountability. Together, these decisions demonstrate the broader impact of the law, extending protection beyond one courtroom or one affected group to millions of consumers. These three cases show how product liability can involve design defects, inadequate warnings, and long-term health risks. The Ford Pinto case exposed the ethical consequences of knowingly accepting a deadly fuel tank defect, with punitive damages following. Liebeck v. McDonald's highlighted the duty to warn when coffee served at 190 degrees caused third-degree burns, leading to a $2.7 million jury award. The Johnson & Johnson talc litigation involved findings linking asbestos-contaminated baby powder to cancer, producing billions of dollars in verdicts and triggering mass litigation. The common thread is accountability for preventable harm. This chapter examines the business pushback against tort law through the movement for tort reform. Facing rising litigation costs, businesses and industry groups have advocated laws that restrict the plaintiff's ability to sue or place limits on recoverable damages. The central debate is about balancing economic concerns with accountability. Supporters say excessive lawsuits increase prices, discourage innovation, and burden the courts. Critics argue that damage caps may shield negligent corporations and leave seriously injured consumers without adequate compensation. So, tort reform raises both economic and fairness questions. Preemption is a powerful corporate defense based on the idea that federal approval can limit state-level tort claims. The Supreme Court, however, has drawn different lines for different products. In Regal versus Medtronic, federal approval of medical devices blocked state product liability suits, favoring manufacturers. In Wyeth versus Levine, FDA approval of a drug label did not block a state failure to warn claim, favoring consumers. The central tension remains how to balance federal oversight with meaningful access to state courts. Each new case can redraw that boundary. The key takeaway is that courts remain the cornerstone of consumer protection, giving injured people meaningful recourse through negligence, warranty, and strict liability. Strict liability shifts accountability toward those who profit from products. Meanwhile, damage caps, preemption, and arbitration can significantly reshape consumers' access to justice.